Welcome to the Tokumba Chronicles, a podcast about the journeys we take and the stories we make. In this podcast, I'll be sharing moving stories that are sure to empower, educate, and entertain you. Stories have an incredible way of connecting us to one another, uplifting us, and giving us permission to tell our own story. I will be speaking to entrepreneurs, trailblazers, and dreamers who have incredible and powerful stories to share. From their triumphs and tribulations, we'll be drawing out the details, the how-tos, and the lessons we can take away. Life is what you make it, and only you get to decide how your story is written. I hope by sharing these stories with you, you will live inspired and equipped to live yours out unapologetically. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the chronicles. I am your host and chief storyteller, Tokumba Kweki, a multi-passionate entrepreneur, founder of the award-winning Tokumba's Kitchen and London African Food Week. When I'm not cooking up a storm in the kitchen or regaling guests with my own epic stories, you are most likely to find me in the middle of the dance floor, bringing the party to life. Welcome to episode 8 of the Tokumba Chronicles podcast. If you're listening to this in real time, we are now mid-May and coming to the end of month 2 of lockdown here in the UK. So much of our lives has changed globally since this COVID-19 pandemic started, and one big impact we are all reeling from is our collective inability to travel. Well, the story of my guest on today's show will hopefully transport you to some new and exciting places as she recounts her experience living and working in glamorous cities such as New York, Rio de Janeiro, and London. Tahlia Gray was born in Sydney, Australia, of Jamaican heritage, where she spent the first 15 years of her life. Her family then moved to the UK, where what was meant to be, according to her mom, a year-long trip to broaden your horizon became a more permanent move. Tahlia chose to study international business with a course that offered her a year abroad living in Brazil. Following this, Tahlia then moved to live and work in New York, where whilst trying to live her best Sex and the City life, her inability to find tights to match her skin tone propelled her to start Sheer Chemistry, an empowering Hosiery brand driven by a mission to create a more diverse perception of beauty. When Tahlia stumbled across this problem, she considered writing an angry letter to someone, but then realized that the person likely to be on the receiving end wouldn't understand, nor would he care about her issue. In that moment, Tahlia decided that the only person who could really fix this problem was herself. And thus began her journey of creating her first business, starting with receiving the name which came to her in her sleep. She also did some market research by speaking to makeup artists to better understand the different shades for Black women and other women of color. You will hear during this episode that Tahlia has been so intentional in how she sets up her business, thinking very carefully about her branding and marketing. And this comes true from the moment you receive your package to the point of you putting on the tights and getting on with your day. She backs this up with the Tahlia's promise that allows you to get your money back if you feel anything short of love for her products. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the Tahlia's Interpret Travel Chronicles. I am so excited to introduce my guest today, Tahlia Gray. Tahlia Gray is the founder of Sheer Chemistry, an empowering Hosiery brand specialising in tights for women of colour. Born in Australia of Jamaican heritage, she is passionate about challenging the traditional beauty standards and helping women reach their potential. Before starting Sheer Chemistry, Tahlia graduated from the University of Birmingham with a degree in international business and began her career in New York, working in HR for some of the world's largest organizations, including UBS, Morgan Stanley, and Linklaters. Tahlia, wow, so born in Australia, lived in New York, went to University of Birmingham. Do you know what, funny story. So when I was applying to university, I actually was considering Birmingham, and then I visited Birmingham, and I was like, I am not listening to this accent for 3 years. Sorry, Birmingham people. Sorry.
That's hilarious. Yeah, but it's funny because even though Birmingham, yes, the accent is not the best, but most of the people in Birmingham are from all over the place. So
yeah. Oh, amazing. So did you grow up in Australia?
I did. So I was born in Sydney, Australia, and grew up there for the first 15 years of my life.
What was that experience like?
It was amazing. Australia's a great place to raise a family, I think. And so a very outdoorsy, adventurous childhood.
Surfing?
Not surfing, funnily enough. I've never properly tried to surf.
So not the neighbours home and away type of life.
Not really. Very sporty. I think I tried most sports under the sun, but just not surfing.
Oh, amazing. And what were you like growing up? What was a young Tahlia like?
I was very sporty. Yeah, so I was part of most team sports. I did athletics heavily.
I loved athletics as well.
Yeah, so I was very competitive.
Yeah.
And yeah, you could find me outside on most days. I think I was quite a tomboy, actually.
Okay.
I have a twin brother.
Oh, wow, really?
Yeah, and I think my mum is not really a girly girl mum. She doesn't do hair and she doesn't really do dresses and stuff. So a lot of the time she just dressed us similarly.
Okay.
And that was more tomboyish, like dungarees, jeans, you know.
Keep it simple.
Yeah, so I think I kind of rebelled against that because I wanted to be the girly girl that my mum didn't want me to be.
Okay. So at what point do you feel that you became that girly girl and got into tights?
Yeah, well, tights came like very much later. But I think when I went to high school, because I went to a girls' school, and it was a lot about, you know, hair and makeup, although predominantly everyone was white. Yeah. But that's when I wanted to relax my hair, and I begged my mum, and she would only allow me once I went to high school. So it was like 12, which is quite old. Yeah.
Well, some people say quite young actually to relax your hair as well.
I think a lot of people get their hair relaxed at like 4 or 5 and things.
Yeah, I think that generation maybe, but I think times are changing. Yeah, definitely.
But so I think it's when I went to high school that I wanted to be a little bit more feminine.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what was the transition like going? So from Australia, you then moved to the UK?
Yeah.
What was that transition like?
It was interesting because most of my family, it was just my immediate family who lived in Sydney. Okay. And so my mum called it like the trip to broaden your horizons. And so it was like this adventure that she'd created. And it was only supposed to be for a year. Okay. So to this day, I don't know if that was an intentional psychological move. If it was, she's a G. She still is a G. But because it was for a year abroad, we were like, bye friends, we'll see you in a year. This is so much fun. And we were coming via Thailand. So we spent like 2 weeks in Thailand and then came to London. Yeah. And for us, it was really exciting because a lot of my mum's family live in London. Yeah. So we were having the opportunity to meet all of our cousins, aunties, uncles, and granddad. Again, I'd met my granddad once before for the first time. Yeah. So I guess the transition was quite smooth because we did have that family who did welcome us, and we did live with our granddad initially. My mum had already planned the schools that we were going to. And I guess
So it wasn't a year thing, she already had her plan. She just told you guys it was
Yeah, we never went back.
She was like 15 years over here, I think I've had enough.
Yeah. So it was a G move, it was a bold move, but she set it up really well. And I guess culturally, for the first time in my life, I was like, so many black people.
Wow, I can imagine.
And so we were like, oh my gosh. And I just remember, I can't remember where we were driving through exactly, but our auntie and uncle picked us up from the airport and we were driving through some like Asian areas. And I just remember looking out the window in fascination that there were like areas of dominant like ethnic minorities. Wow. And it was just like, wow, this is amazing.
Awesome. So from Australia to the UK, you then did your university year. And what made you decide to study international business?
I knew that I wanted wanted to start a business at one point. I had no idea what that business would be, but I'd done business at GCSE and A level, and I thought it was cool, and so I just wanted to prepare myself for when the idea comes.
Sounds fun.
And I guess what attracted me to Birmingham is it was one of, I think, 2 or 3 places that had a compulsory year abroad.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's what was the main point.
So it wasn't an accent.
No. So it was either Birmingham or Manchester. I think it was the two of them.
I visited Manchester as well, and I was like, no.
It was just far. No. It was far.
Yeah.
So that's why it went to Birmingham, because it was the closer one.
Amazing. And doing international, so what do you think, apart from was it only doing your studying business at GCSE that piqued your interest in becoming an entrepreneur or starting a business one day? Or did you have any other experiences growing up that you saw that made you think, actually running my own business is probably something I want to do in the future?
I think there were a lot of people that I looked up to, that in terms of business women, that I wanted to be like. And
who were they, some of them?
Like Sarah Blakely has always been a huge inspiration for me. Like some of I can't think of anyone else off the top of my head. But there's just been a lot of people who've, especially like Phil, the Nike founder.
Oh yeah.
Phil, what's his name?
No, not sure actually. The founder of Nike.
Shoe dog. Anyway, the founder the founder of Nike, and reading those stories. Okay. I used to be obsessed with Nike.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, well, it makes sense because you're a sport, isn't it?
Yeah.
So I never got into Nike at all.
Obsessed, and the whole Nike story, and just how innovative they were with the Olympic Games and their branding and everything. So yeah, just stories like that and how you can create something out of nothing. That really fascinated me. I wasn't really like a born entrepreneur, I don't think. My twin brother was. He's been selling since he was I think when we came to this country, he started hardcore. So he's been selling something from the age of 15, whether it's tracksuits, sandwiches. He used to work at Greg's, and he would take the sandwiches and sell them on his campus. He sold cars, trainers, everything. And I guess looking at him as well, and just the hustle of it, it was great. It was very inspirational. So I wanted a little piece of that action. And so I thought, even if I don't start my own business, working for a big organization first and then moving into something that inspires me would be the way to go.
Amazing. So what prompted the move to New York after you graduated? Was that because you said you had a gap year during your course? Was that in New York, or where was that?
No, so I went to Brazil.
Oh, amazing. Oh my God, I'm jealous. So now I wish I'd done international business at Birmingham. If I knew I could have gone to Brazil.
Yeah, so
nobody told me that.
Yeah, so that was always the plan, to go to South America. But it's funny because I started learning Spanish when I started my course, but Brazil's the only Portuguese-speaking country in South America, so I was pretty screwed. But I was doing a marketing internship in the south of Brazil, working for an English language school. And I guess how I got to New York after that is because I just fell in love with the culture, the Brazilian culture, and being away from home and just meeting new people and exploring new places.
Especially at that young age.
Yeah. And I gained not only just an amazing experience, but like a family away from home who I'm still in contact with. And so it was really powerful for me. So I think I went through just I was so upset to be leaving. I've never cried so much leaving a place before, but it took me, I was 4 hours away from the airport where I was staying. I cried the whole time for most of the flight.
I would cry if I had to leave Brazil to come back to the UK.
You know what I mean?
I would cry too. I really would.
You know, so I just
like Brazil, UK, Brazil,
So then I had to come back to finish my degree.
Course.
And after that, because I'd had such an amazing experience, I'm like, I'm not staying here. So I actually tried to go back to Brazil, and you know, sometimes when it's just not working out. But I was looking at anywhere but the UK, and so then an opportunity came up in New York, and I was like, I'm going.
I love New York. New York is my favorite city in the world.
One of mine too.
I feel like you've kind of lived the life that I was meant to live. Like,
it's not
in Brazil.
Too late. It's not
no, it's
too
not.
late.
It's not. It really isn't. And I am making those moves and really trying to be a lot more intentional. But I think there's also a different kind of energy when you get to like have a gap here when you're like 19, 20 to when you're in your late 30s or like early 30s. It's never too late, but it's just a different type of energy. And I know, I mean, I've been traveling to New York since I was 14, and I actually aspired to live in New York when I was younger. I ended up living in Washington, D.C., which was not the same experience.
Washington's cool as well.
It's cool, but it's not New York.
It's not New York. It's not.
So, amazing. So your first kind of like graduate job when you finished your course was in New York. Tell us about that. What was that experience like? What were you doing out there? And how long were you in New York for?
So I was in New York for a year. So it was part of a graduate program called Mountbatten.
Okay.
So there's like a cohort of people from the UK and elsewhere, Australia and Thailand, who go over to New York.
I've heard of that.
Yeah, it's amazing. And because you're part of a community, because there's 150 people each cohort, so it's like a huge
Incredible.
thing. Yeah, and everyone's working at different places. At that time, I was working at UBS, which is an investment bank in HR. And I was looking after the graduate training program. So all the graduates who wanted to become investment bankers, they would be part of this training, 2-year training program.
Sure.
And I was responsible for organizing all the training, social events, everything.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so it was a really fun job.
I can imagine, because it was like you were pretty much in that same category yourself.
Exactly. So we were a similar age. They were really intelligent people and fun to go out with as well. And so, you're also in a group of people who are willing to learn, hungry to learn, and very like motivated, ambitious people. So it was great building relationships with this group of people. So I learned a lot, but I think one of the things that excited me about being in New York and how kind of sheer chemistry came about is that I wanted to, I was excited just to have access to products that I couldn't find in the UK, and you know, makeup, hair stuff at that point, because it wasn't like today, because we've come a long way in this short space of time.
What year was that?
I went in 2011.
Okay.
2011 to 2012.
It's actually incredible how that wasn't so long ago, but it really was long ago.
It was, because you couldn't really, at that point here, you couldn't find black products on the high street, apart from the black hair shops. Or going to Selfridges and buying your Mac. That's what we had to do.
That's what we did. The struggle was real. The struggle was real, people. Exactly. I was actually having this conversation over the weekend about how this generation, I mean, I am an older millennial, but the younger millennials and the Gen X, Gen Y, is it Gen Y?
Gen Y.
I think it's Gen Y. They are so lucky because Uber Eats, night train, on like London Tube, night train. Like Uber, you can we had to wait for the bus.
Yeah, I remember.
night bus.
Night bus going around the world.
Yeah, and that was like, and there was no like, check what time the night bus was coming.
There was no app.
There was
no app.
There was no apps. The struggle was so real. So so I can definitely imagine like that process of like, because like I said, I've been going to New York since I was 14, and so for me I had access to that world. I feel like there was a time when I went to New York every year. Like I literally only did my shopping in New York.
Oh wow!
Yeah.
Oh wow!
Yeah. I literally was like, only did my
That's
shopping
living right there
in New York because it was just like, I'm sorry, London's the ghetto. Like,
well, if you can, like that's great.
So because actually, what started my trips to New York was my mom is a businesswoman.
Oh, okay.
And while she couldn't leave the country, so she used to send me to New York. So I actually, used to buy things to sell. So clothing, shoes, accessories.
Yeah.
Never really got into makeup. I was more a perfume girl. So it was like, West 31st by Broadway was where I used to like spend all my money, just like buying Kenzo flowers. So I love the energy of New York. And then when you come back to London, it's just a different vibe.
Yeah. Because I always say like New York is like London on steroids, you know?
Yeah.
It's faster, it's bigger, it's just everything.
Yeah.
But I love New York.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about Shared Chemistry. So you obviously, I mean, it's interesting because obviously I know about the brand and I know the names of the ties, and I'm like, oh, that makes sense. Why those are the names that you've chosen. But kind of talk about when you made that decision and how did you come about creating an Hosiery brand, and then the thought process in terms of like the branding, because I have seen I think in the last maybe 4 or 5 years especially, there's been quite an upsurge in the people who are creating Hosiery brands for women of color, and I'm not just saying this because you're my guest. I'm saying this because as somebody who's been a customer of Shared Chemistry, your branding and your packaging and your ties are one of the best that I've come across on the market. And it was just like it feels like luxury. Like you put it on and I just feel like, wow. Like that was my first experience, like putting the tights, and I'm just like, wow, yes. And it's like the perfect match, and I doesn't even feel like I'm wearing tights.
Yeah, that's like, the whole concept. Well, I guess for me it was a product that I wanted. So living in New York, and I was trying to live that Sex and the City life, all of us I think have been through that phase when we're like, I am Carrie Bradshaw. And I guess like because I was working on Madison Avenue, Midtown. I was living the life. And with my friends, we would go to happy hour pretty much every day. Every day, and then we would probably go on to dinner, or we would go to a club, and that because we were like, it was a limited time. We all knew that we had a year, and so we
made the most of it.
We were making the most of it, so we were out every day. And at that point, you're trying to look the part. I was wearing black opaque tights because going into winter, it gets cold. It gets proper cold.
New York's cold is So this is the thing. Everything about America is extreme. Like while you've got like the amazingness, the weather, especially New York weather, cold.
Yeah. And so that's because I've never really been a nail person or like a hair. Well, I have been a hair person, but at that point I was still on the weave game hard. But everything needs to be on fleek at all times. And black opaque tights, because New York's very fashion forward. So I'd be wearing these black opaque tights, and then I'd probably wear them to happy hour. But at some point in the night, they would get rolled up and put in my bag, and then I would freeze, or then freeze. And sometimes I would even when we're going back home, I would put them on again. And so I thought, I just wanted a pair of tights that would see me through the day. So I ended up going to department stores and looking for this product because I just wanted tights that match my skin tone. I keep me warm. I can wear them to the office. I can wear them in happy hour. If we go into a club, they look fine.
Right.
So I went to the stores, and all the people that worked at the stores were like, we don't have wrap.
Wow. Do you know what? It's actually incredible when you think about how, like you said, New York is so fashion forward. And I mean, yes, Italy is where fashion is made, but for me, if I'm drawing inspiration for fashion, New York is where I want to be. New York is where, whether it's in the Bronx or in Brooklyn or in Manhattan, and you're looking at Sex and the City, some of the other TV shows that's come out of New York, the fashion is on point.
Yeah.
Like literally, there's so many different variations of how you can be on fleek, and you can, you can create a new look for yourself in New York. But yet in 2011, brands were still not considering women of color for tights,
so
for underwear.
Exactly,
it's just like,
exactly. So so for me, it had never been a thought in my mind that I couldn't find the product. I just thought, okay, well, this is what I need. I'm in New York. It's so diverse, more so in terms of African Americans than here. So it won't be a problem. And so when I continually got told that we don't have a product for you, and you should try Barely Black, or we've got black tights, or we've got this ashy something. I was just like
nude, and it's like nude for who?
Yeah, and when you're in the store and sometimes the lighting, you're like, oh, maybe it's not so bad. And so I would buy these tights, and then I'd wear these tights, and then I look down and I'm like, these are bad. And then I got self-conscious because I thought everyone's staring at my legs because they look so bad. And then I would end up taking them off. And it was just it was a struggle. It was a real struggle. So I ended up hoarding all these tights and trying them and was never satisfied. And I was just like, how hard could it be, And so me being me, I just wanted to kind of write an angry letter to someone. But then once I sat down and I'm like, but who am I writing this to? And why do they care? And what do I want them to do? Because I guess when you're writing complaint letters, I always think, what do I want the outcome to be? And at the end of the day, I thought it's going to be some white middle-aged man who, even if he shows some kind of compassion and wants to do something, how can I expect him to deliver a product for me that's going to be good? Even if he has the best of intentions, And so I just thought, well, it's kind of pointless. And the only person who can really fix this problem is someone who looks like me. And instead of waiting or complaining or shouting in the air, why don't I just do it,
Wow. That's incredible. That's really, I think about and I think that's the difference of what makes somebody an entrepreneur, because it's about, seeing a problem. I interviewed another guest, Alex, in my first episode. And I remember Alex saying that, that's what an entrepreneur is. You see a problem and you seek to fix and solve that problem rather than waiting for somebody else to actually do it. But incredible. So you decided, okay, this is a problem. I want to be the one to fix it. How did you then create the brand? What was the process?
So for me, it only became real once I had a name. And so I think that's the first thing that I did. I thought, what do I want this brand to represent? And that's when I came up with Sheer Chemistry.
How did you come up with Sheer Chemistry? Because there's a lot of people out there who have business ideas or who think about wanting to start a business and they get stuck with the name. And there's also a lot of people out there who come up with business names for their brand that really have no relevance to the products or the service that they're marketing. And I think, Sheer Chemistry is just so ingenious, because in as much as it conveys tights, it can actually be so many other things. And I think maybe, when you think about expanding that brand on, it's just like, it's an amazing name, honestly. I hope you've trademarked it.
I have,
Awesome. Of course you have.
I have, but I guess I knew that I always wanted 2 words, and I had an actual brainstorming little book, and it took me, I think, a few weeks, maybe even a month or 2 to come up with a name. And I wanted 2 words, one that represented the sheer, the tights, which was sheer, which is kind of like transparent and just represents tights, and then chemistry came about because I wanted a word that represented the matching process. So chemistry, like you mix 2 things together, but also more than that, it's the chemistry that you have with someone. So I wanted it to represent the chemistry that you have with a friend or a sister or a mother. We're a brand that supports you, understands you, and is here for you.
Oh, it's so intentional. I love that thought process. Love it.
So chemistry just made so much sense. So when it came, I was like, oh my gosh.
How did it come? Because some people are they've slept and then the name come.
Mine came in my sleep. Right. So I'd been brainstorming, and I think I'd actually come across, I'd actually written it down before, but it just connected in my sleep, and I actually woke up in the middle of the night and wrote it down, and I was like, that's it, so yeah, it just made so much sense, and like you were saying, it's not restrictive to tights. So I do plan to take it into other product categories, and I think it's a name that can do that, you know?
Amazing. So you've got the name, you've got the idea. How did you then go from name idea to actually actualizing the concept to the point now where your tights are being sold and you know people are wearing your tights?
So it was kind of like, where the hell do I start? So I guess I'm a very practical person. So I thought, what's available to me that I can start formulating the shades, because that was the most important thing for me. So I thought, okay, well, makeup exists. As much as it wasn't as diverse as it is today, there were brands like MAC and Bobbi Brown and even like Black Up and that I could access. And so I went to like department stores and those beauty counters, and I would just collect little pots.
Samples.
And, you know, in order to be, and a lot of them I would tell them what I'm doing. Like, I'm creating a hosiery brand. I'm looking at different shades, so can you help me? So a lot of them I was just very honest, and they were really happy to help. And some I'm still...
And I think that's a key point. A lot of people, I mean, I always tell people, if you don't ask, you don't get. And actually, more times than not, people do want to help. So it's like, if you actually just be like, hey, this is what I'm doing, then people are going to be like, okay, how can I support that?
Exactly. So sometimes I would be like with a makeup artist for like half an hour just chatting, and I would be like, you know, that girl, that Asian girl, what do you think she would wear? And they would be like, you know, NW, such and such. And I'd like, so that girl. And then I would talk to them about trends, about dominant shades and everything like that to get their expertise.
Market research, essentially.
I also did surveys as well to see what people were currently wearing in terms of their foundation, and kind of put that all together. So once I had all the pots, I had like A3 sheets of paper, and I would grade them, and then I would group them, and then with the information from the makeup artist, I would be like, okay, well, that's the dominant shade, so maybe that's the group there. And then it was a lot of playing around with shades and paper and talking to makeup artists.
Amazing. So how long did that process take?
It took about 2 months.
Okay.
So it wasn't, but I would go like after work. During this time I was still working full time, so I would go after work and hang out.
Less happy hours.
And hang out at beauty counters and chat. And I collected, like, I just did a Google Forms survey and collected hundreds of people's responses about tights.
So you've done all the surveys, you've got your data, and you now, at what point actually, so taking it back a little bit, even before you started doing the survey, at what point did you think this is a viable product that other people are going to be just as interested in as I am?
Well, I guess I was talking to a lot of people at that point, and just saying, this is what I'm thinking, what do you think? And everyone was like, oh my gosh. And it just seemed to be a very emotional response from people. So instead of just going off people, like my friends' emotional responses, I thought, I'm going to do a survey first. So I started with a survey.
Okay.
And then I think it was about 90% of people who did the survey said if they had tights that matched their skin tone, they would wear them. And I was like, okay, well, this is 300 people saying this. So I think I've got a leg to stand on. So as of that point, I was like, I think this could be something.
Yeah, because there's nothing worse than if you actually, and I think this is like the reason why I'm trying to ask that question is to let other people know that market research is the first thing you need to do. You need to find out if this idea, if this product that I'm thinking of creating is actually needed in the market. If there's actually, I mean, I might think I need it, but if 300 people don't think they need it, then you don't have a product, you don't have a business idea. So before actually taking the step to then go off and do the speaking to the makeup artist, creating the data, you need to have had a way of actually realizing that this is a viable business idea. So yeah, it sounds like you know, but obviously you did international business, so you knew all of this already. But for other people who didn't do international business, I think it's just kind of like, these are some of the steps. I know it was, for me, it was the same thing when I started my food business. I knew I wanted to eat Nigerian food in London, and I was just tired of going out and not seeing that being represented. But I then would ask other people. So I got on Twitter, I did a Survey Monkey, shared it on Twitter, and I was just like, who else is out there who wants this service, before actually launching my product.
And I think we can get easily caught up in our own heads and think, well, because I want it, everyone else wants it, and that's not necessarily the case. But yeah, luckily this seemed to resonate with a lot of people. So now you've done your market research. What was the next step? Like, how do you now go about creating types? So this is where I was like really stumped. Like, I was like, okay, I need to find a manufacturer. And so I turned to Google, like most people would. And then I researched, all the tights manufacturers in the UK, because I knew that I wanted to stay close to home, just for simplicity. So I had this list of manufacturers and their numbers and contact details and all this stuff. And I just didn't feel comfortable calling anybody.
Why was that?
Because I guess at that point I was like, but how can I trust these people? And how do I know that they're not just going to run off with my idea and do it themselves? So I didn't actually do anything at that point, and I started to go to events. But in the meantime, I started to go to events, like business events, fashion events, just to get myself into that circle, because I hadn't started a business. I didn't know anyone else who was doing something similar. So I thought, what better way than just to meet people who are doing something similar? And very early on, I ended up at an event at the London College of Fashion, which was called the Business of Fashion. And there was a woman on the panel who had a bespoke shirt company based in Mayfair. And she was telling us about the difficulties that she's had with manufacturing. And when she went into the US market, they weren't up to her quality standard, and she ended up having to pull shirts from the shop just because they didn't meet the standard. And then she ended up buying a factory and all this stuff.
Wow.
Not everyone is in that position.
Exactly.
Remember, I said she's in Mayfair. But naturally, because at that point I was very bold and like have to ask the first question and all that stuff.
Listen, key networking event. I'm actually doing a seminar on networking, and that's like the key thing. I always tell people, make sure you either ask the first question or the last question. Because that's the ones that people remember. It stands out, and also it kind of sets the tone. Because if you can ask a great first question, it just sets the tone for everybody else. If they don't match up to that.
And I guess one of the reasons also on the networking point is I went specifically to answer for myself the manufacturing question, and so I knew that manufacturing was a point of discussion, and I wanted to hear from this woman. So I asked her, this is my business idea. I'm struggling because I've got a list of manufacturers. I don't know who to trust. And what would you recommend in order to protect myself in this process or whatever? And she talked about NDAs and the whole legal side. But then she was like, actually, I have a friend who's in the hosiery business.
Love it. The power of networking, people. The power of networking cannot be underestimated.
Honestly. So she's like, actually, I have a friend who's in the hosiery business. Come speak to me afterwards. And because she was one of those, she's a super busy person, and we've maintained a friendship since then. And so had I not asked the question, she wouldn't have even been available to talk to afterwards, because she was going straight. But because I'd asked, she's like, oh, this is the person's details. I'll introduce you by email. And she went off. So this friend of hers happened to be the founder of the biggest online tights distributor.
Wow.
At the time, it doesn't exist anymore. It's got taken over by a bigger company. But yeah, so she knew everybody.
Wow. Just by asking a question. Cannot underestimate the power of networking.
Yeah, so she
and being intentional, and I think that's the difference. Like, you know, you weren't just going to this networking event because it was a networking event. You were very intentional about networking within the space that you're trying to occupy, and then being intentional in going to an event that was actually geared towards what your struggle was. So so it kind of was. It was too good to be true. But you know, sometimes, and because I am a believer, and I do believe that when you're on the right track, you know, doors will open for you. Because the universe will conspire.
Honestly, because what are the odds? You know, and so it was wild. It was wild. And so this friend of the person on the panel introduced me to several manufacturers, and one of them ended up being the one that did all my product development.
Okay, amazing. Wow. I mean, this is so great. I love it. Like, just thinking about like the process between the being freezing in New York, deciding, okay, I'm tired of going out and, you know, having to take off these black ties, and then going through that process of developing the idea to meeting the manufacturer. How long would you say that took you?
So I decided definitely I was going to do a business like a year after coming back from New York. That event, so I registered the business in June 2013.
Okay.
That event was December 2013. And then the whole development process was long-winded. And it took 18 months, or probably even more, 2 years.
Is that a normal process for that industry, or is it because you were creating something that was new and niche?
I think there were several factors why it took so long, but it didn't. I think that's not normal.
No, I think 18 months.
It's not normal.
Especially for a manufacturer who that's what they do already.
Yeah, but I think also on the topic of manufacturing, because I was using an agent who had manufacturers in Italy. And so I guess there's the difference between using an agent, which is a middle person. And so a lot of the communication got lost. Yeah. And so sometimes things that should have been like this were not like that. And so we had to go back and forth. And there was a lot of like gray area. So I think for those people who are using an agent or not going direct to the manufacturer, it will be a longer process. But because I wasn't at that point confident enough to just launch myself into Italy or wherever I was going to get the manufacturers, which didn't end up being the UK, just because the hosiery industry is kind of a dying trade in this country, unfortunately. At that point, I wasn't going to go to Italy myself, although I did end up doing that later on. I think it was just building up my knowledge of the industry, because I learned a lot in terms of just hosiery tights in that process and what I really wanted. And by the time we finished the product development, I could be like, I know everything, and therefore I can now go to Italy and find my own.
Amazing. Okay, so now you've gotten to the point where you've created this product. Now, you've talked about the process took about 2-3 years from generating the idea to then actually getting the product. I mean, that must have cost you money.
Yeah, it did. It did.
Because that's the other thing that stops people from starting businesses or like doing something is like, oh, I don't have the money. I mean, when you started, did you even have any idea of the amount of money you were going to end up spending?
No, I didn't. Absolutely.
And actually, okay, knowing what you know now, if you could go back, would you still start that idea? Knowing how much money you spent to get your idea to
Probably
the
not. Probably not. So I think, I say this a lot, I think the naivety that I went in and the overconfidence that I had was an asset.
Yeah.
Because I didn't know how long it would take. I didn't know how difficult it would be. initially I was like, how hard could this possibly be? How long could it possibly take? In my mind, I could have it on the shelves in a year and be selling at, Selfridges. Yeah. That seemed practical to me. Right? It really did.
Like Les Brown says, you don't know what you don't know, you don't know.
Exactly. And so, but I'm grateful for the fact that I didn't know at the time, because
I feel the same way.
I think I would have been so much more cautious, and I probably wouldn't have even started, because I'm like, this is a lot. This is.
So let's talk money. How did you, because you were doing, whilst you were in New York, it was an internship, or was it an actual job?
Yeah, it was an internship.
So probably not making...
No, but I didn't start the business until I got back to London. And so at that point I was in a proper job in an investment bank, earning proper money. And so it didn't really, it didn't make a dent in the beginning, because it was like, £200 for a logo, £100 to do this, and £200 there. And so you don't really notice until you actually add it up and you're like, I spent how much?
Yeah. How much did you spend?
I think in that early like 3-year period, it was about $6,000. Wow. Yeah.
Well, actually, that's actually pretty reasonable for starting a business. Yeah. And all of that was your money, you bootstrap all the way through that process?
Yeah. Wow. So it was only when it came to buying the stock that I got a startup loan.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah. And then doing the marketing campaign. So the campaign and the stock was what I spent my Virgin startup loan on. Okay. But yeah, prior to that, all the product development, going to Italy and all that stuff, that was all just from me.
Wow, that's a big commitment. That's a big commitment. But I can definitely see it taking that process and taking that long. So at what point did you then decide you were going to get a startup loan, and why did you decide to go with Virgin?
So I'd identified the manufacturer that I was going to be using, and for tights, the minimum order quantity is quite high. And so although the unit...
What's the number?
For me, 3,000 units. Okay. And so even though the unit costs aren't very high, just 3,000 units alone, and I have 3 different products. So I wanted to start small, but still 3,000 units times
That's
3.
9,000. Almost 10,000. That's a lot. That's a lot.
Yeah, and so I knew that I wasn't going to be able to fund that myself. So that's why I thought, okay, well, there are providers out there where I can get a low rate of interest. And of the different providers that I came across, Virgin's just seemed the most reputable in terms of the mentoring available and the support throughout the lifetime of like the early stages of the business. So that's why I chose Broaden.
Okay. And did you find applying for the startup loan a pretty seamless, straightforward process, or did you feel like you struggled?
It was longer than I thought it would be, because they want to really test your idea and make sure that it's viable. Yeah. And so again, I think I entered it quite naively, because I'm like, I've done a survey. What more do you want?
I've already spent all this money. I've been to Italy. I've got my products. So what kind of things did that?
So I remember my business advisor. This is because you get a business advisor prior to getting the loan, and then you get a mentor afterwards. But the business advisor kind of mentors you through the application process. And so the business advisor, and I really admire him for this. However, at the time, he said, what can you tell me today that will prove to me that the 3,000 units that you're going to buy are going to fly off the shelf?
You was not expecting that.
and I didn't have an answer. I actually didn't have an answer. So I hadn't properly tested the market in terms of like the business testing of the market. Are people actually going to part with their cash to buy my product? And at that point, I hadn't really had a big social media following or had any kind of, I just asked, a few hundred people. Yeah. They said they'd be keen. I'd gone about creating this product, and I thought,
that was it.
Yeah, but they wanted more. So I had to prove the demand. They encouraged me to do a Kickstarter campaign.
Okay.
And for those who
that makes sense.
For those who don't know, this is a crowdfunding platform, and you and followers or potential customers can buy your products at a discounted rate and help you raise the funds that you need for whatever. In my case, it was manufacturing. So it was an unsuccessful campaign in that we didn't reach the target. However, we did raise some thousands of pounds and have a lot of interest and media coverage as well, which then proved that there was a demand for this product.
What a learning curve.
you know, but it was my friend, one of my close friends, she said at the time, because I was, again, entered it very naively, and I was 200% confident that we would reach the target. And I did.
What was your target?
It was 15,000, I think. Okay. 15,000, and we ended up, I think, just under 4.
Okay.
But remember, at that point, from the first day of the campaign, we were starting a social media platform. We had 0 followers. You know, so we were.
So that's still actually great achievement to make from scratch in terms of not having a following already and still being able to generate £4,000 press coverage.
Yeah, in 30 days. I think it might have even been shorter than that because it was just before Christmas. I think we might have done it in 20 days. But but yeah, so we're starting everything from 0. And my friend, when I was depressed after we didn't make the target, she's like, it was the best boot camp that money can't buy, because we learnt everything in that process, from, you know, social media marketing to PR to, like, at one point we would go flyering in Shoreditch on Fridays and Saturday nights and get people to contribute to the campaign and stuff, and like doing stuff like that, which you wouldn't ordinarily do. We would go to Stratford and talk to people, you know. And so we had a lot of early interest, but that was necessary in order to kind of just give it that first lease of life, because prior to that, no one knew what sheer chemistry was. So it was a really, really useful process, but it was tiring. Yeah,
I'm sure. I mean, I think one of the things that I love about being an entrepreneur is you have, in one day, you can have so many emotions.
Yeah.
You can literally have, like, you know, started it off feeling so great, like, years, like you said, you know, went into it really being naive, 200% confident that he's going to succeed. And then by the end of it, you're just like in a slump, wondering what the hell are you doing? Why did you start this thing? And just ready to give it all up.
Yeah, definitely. And because even like when there were 1 day, 2 days to go, I was like, we can do this. I don't know how, but this is going to happen. So I don't know. It was a process. But yeah, you go from extreme highs to extreme lows. And I think managing that is like so necessary.
I mean, what was your support network like? You mentioned your friend helping you out. Because did you have a team, or was it just you and then, you know, relying on friends to support you?
Yeah, so I was relying on friends, but I had 2 friends who were part of the sheer chemistry team. So one who was responsible for PR, and another one who did the finance. And I think in those early days especially, I'm so grateful for them. So grateful, because I think even like the fact that campaign was unsuccessful, or we didn't reach the target, like people to be like, okay, Tahlia, we need to move. Let's go. What's the next step? And be like, okay, let's have a meeting. What are we going to do next? And just being accountable to other people. And other people really believing in me and giving their time freely was just, I will always be grateful for that.
Yeah, that's incredible. So now you didn't get the Kickstarter, but you got the Virgin loan, startup loan. Congratulations. Tell me about when you made your first sale. What was that feeling like? Where was it? How did it happen?
Yeah.
And talk us through that.
Yeah. So launching, we wanted to kind of drum up some PR interest. And I I wanted to partner with a hotel to kind of host us. And I happen to, it's a really random story, but I'll try and be short.
Take your time.
It's this event that the W Hotel was hosting. It's called What She Said.
Okay.
And I'd always earmarked it because I was on the W Hotel mailing list, and I happened to be at my cousin's wedding. This is like ages ago, and we went to breakfast the day after the wedding, and a friend of hers, we started chatting, and she's like, "Oh my gosh, you remind me of my friend." And it happened that I knew that friend, and she did the podcasting for this thing at the W. So I was like, oh my gosh, I've been meaning to go to this event for some time. And so I was like, I'm definitely going to go at some point. But the next one was sold out. And then I think as a result of having that conversation, that's how I joined the mailing list. It was sold out. And then I remember getting a few months later, I think it was like 10 months later, getting a ping from the W saying we've got the next What She Said in celebration of Women's Day.
Okay.
And I was like, oh my gosh, the W Hotel, the W Hotel, the W Hotel. That's where it's going to be, because I'd looked at so many venues for the launch party, and I was just like, that's it. That is it. And
what made you decide hotel specifically to be where you wanted to launch?
I think, to be honest, I'll correct myself. I don't think it was specific at that point. I don't think I'd specifically said a hotel, but a brand collaboration.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So yeah, it just kind of pinged as like, that is the perfect brand. And why it's the perfect brand is because Sheer Chemistry as it's an empowering brand, and it celebrates the diverse beauty of women of colour, but more so, and I guess we'll get into this a bit later, but the brand is all about telling the stories of women who have stories to tell, and who are not just, beauties, but their beauty comes from where they've been and where they're going, and that's why
I like that.
We call the shades after cosmopolitan and desirable cities, and it so happens that the W Hotel is present in all of the 5 cities, and so it's a very cosmopolitan brand.
So that would have been quite easy sell to them then.
So again, so I went, I got this email, and I remember being in the bathroom when I got this email from the W saying that they're celebrating Women's Day for this event, and it was sold out. And I'm like, I'm going.
I love that.
I'm going.
I love it.
I'm going. So I showed up with no ticket, and I went to the woman, I don't have a ticket, and she laughed at me, and she's like, just go.
Bodacious ass. You have to be. Do you know what? I love how fearless you are, because it resonates so much with me. That's the kind of thing I would do. Literally, like, I don't know how I'm getting in, but I'm going. And just rock up and just be like,
and I think the woman I think admired my boldness, because I told her I don't have a ticket.
And you weren't even like asking for permission at that point. You weren't even like, oh, I'm so sorry, I don't have a ticket. He was just like, I don't have a ticket, but I'm going in.
Basically, and again, I think I think they've changed the format, but at that point they had like a pitch thing.
Okay.
And again, I asked a question to one of the girls on the panel. She worked for the Virgin Group, and I asked her, how can I get my tights on the Virgin cabin crew?
Love it. Oh my god, I love it.
So everyone's like,
I love it. Like, you will be remembered regardless of whether you actually achieved that.
So I don't think and then I pitched at the end as well, so everyone knew what I was about. And so the brand manager happened to be in that room, and so I spoke to her afterwards, and so I had the intention that we were going to do a collaboration, but all my intention is for her to know who I am, and to get her contact information. And then I emailed her the next day, with a proposal, just, keeping it short and sweet.
Yeah.
And, if she wants to meet up. And we met up. And she's like, yeah, definitely. We would love to.
Love it.
And I was like, oh my God.
Love it. Do you know what? I'm there with you. I can feel that. Yeah.
So the W hosted our launch event.
What date was that?
That was the 7th of June, 2017.
Wow.
And they sold...
not that long ago.
No. And in the meeting with this woman who's no longer with the W, but she was like, what if we could sell your products? And I was like, oh my gosh. This would be amazing. And she's like, we could sell... She's like, no, that would be a bit more meaningful. We could host you and then we could sell the products for a few months. And and so that was actually her idea, not mine.
Wow.
That was her idea.
That's so incredible. Because you got that email sold out and you still rocked up and said, I'm going.
Yeah. But as I said, it started from a conversation at a wedding breakfast some time ago. So it was their idea, and they've been really supportive of the brand ever since. The intention was to sell from their spa shop. Yeah. For the first month, but that ended up being 6 months. So the first sales happened on the day at the W, and then people who attended the launch event that didn't buy started buying online.
Wow.
Yeah. So I remember the first one coming through and being like, oh my God, this is real. But I think also for me, and I guess anyone with a product business will identify, there's so much hype and enthusiasm to start, and the branding, and I love branding, and I get really stuck into it, and but then you're like, oh my gosh, like I need to sell stuff. My job's just begun. And so for me that was quite overwhelming. Just in what ways? Just the thought of, I like that fun stuff has kind of now finished, and now it's like work.
So it's like when you're developing the product and you're doing those trips to Italy and you're talking to the manufacturer, you're working on the business but you're not working in the business. And it's the point of actually, now I've got a product, now I have to sell this, I need to get customers, and not only that, I need to get those customers to come back, tell other people, bring new customers. That's when you now like, it's work. And so I think that was quite overwhelming. So I think I went into a bit of a slump again after the launch, because I'm like, oh my gosh, like I have to run this. And an entrepreneur's life is not easy.
It's not. And you have to also build a whole new skill set, because it's now...
The best way I heard, I was on a panel with another entrepreneur, and the best way she said, which I was like, that makes sense. You are not only the CEO, you're the everything from the cleaner to the CEO. And that's essentially what it is, especially when you are, a solo entrepreneur, even when you've got friends who are supporting you. I mean, you're even lucky you had that. I had none of that, and I felt like I remember doing my third year anniversary, did a supper club, and I remember going home crying, thinking, I'm never doing this again. Like, I'm done. Like, I no longer want, like, the pictures that came out were like me smiling, but when I know how alone I felt in that moment, being just like, this is too much work. What am I doing this for?
I know. And I guess just having a strong why about why you're doing it, because I've gone through periods where I'm like, what am I doing this for? And then I remember like, oh yes, it's for women of color. It's so that they can love themselves on a daily basis. Oh yes, this is worth fighting for. But sometimes when you're in the trenches, you're like,
I don't really know if I want to fight for those women. I'm tired of fighting for myself.
And another thing in that period is because you're so into it, and for me, my brand, although it can stand alone, there's a lot of me in it. And because I was so immersed in it, it became difficult to separate Tahlia and sheer chemistry. And I remember being at a barbecue and my friend asking like, but like apart from sheer chemistry, what's happening with you? And I was like,
are you still friends?
we are. But I was like, in my mind, I was like, I don't know. Of course I made up something, but I was like, and then I was like, I don't know what my hobbies are. I don't know what I like to do. I actually don't know. So in my mind, I was having like a little breakdown at that point. And then I was just like, oh my gosh, I don't know who I am anymore. Like if you took away Sheer Chemistry at that point, which was like a week after the launch, I actually don't know who I am. And so I went through a period of kind of rediscovering Tahlia. And just exploring things that I did used to like, and I guess that's how I got back into running, because I was like, I haven't run in years, and just other stuff, music, live music, and just things that I just had put on the back burner because I was so busy in my business.
So that question was kind of life-changing because it kind of brings you back to you.
Yeah, because I don't want to be someone who is all about my business, and when it goes, or, you know, if something happens, for me to crumble within it. So it was really important. And I think that question was really... it was perfect actually at that point, because it really did allow me to ask, like, who am I outside of Sheer Chemistry? Because I think you do kind of get wrapped up.
It's businesses can be quite all consuming. It's like you wake up, you breathe, live, and essentially you, especially like you said, when you are the face of the brand, there's no escaping that. It becomes a big part of who you are. It becomes your story. You can't go out without not talking about your brand, right? Even, regardless of where you are, regardless of the context. So it's incredible. Wow, what a journey! I am so privileged to actually have you on the show to share this story, because, you know, one of the reasons I wanted to start this podcast is to tell stories like this, is to, you know, hear about that journey of, you know, living that cosmopolitan life, you know, trying to be Carrie Bradshaw in New York, and then creating a product that, regardless of where Sheer Chemistry goes and regardless of what happens, you had that idea, you had a vision, and you executed it, and you did it so very well. And, you know, one of the things I really wanted to talk about with you was in terms of branding and marketing. I remember when I discovered Sheer Chemistry was on a platform called Janet's List, and I remember ordering from me because it was like, yes, I need those. I think I'd actually tried to order bra from another brand. And I am going to name them Nubians, and
Nubian skin.
Nubian Skin. I did not have a pleasant experience with that brand. I'd been wanting to order stuff from them for quite a while. I ordered online, and when it came, they were too small. And I called customer service, and they were like, in the FAO, it says that our bra comes up a size small. And I was like, nobody goes into online shopping, goes and checks the FAO. We just think, oh, I'm buying bra. I'm going to buy this size and it's going to come and that's my size. So I was like, and then they wanted me to pay to return. So I'd already paid for the packaging. And I don't like paying for packaging. Like, it really grates me. Like, I really don't like paying for packaging, especially at a certain price point. I think you as a brand should, or as a company, you should take that charge. Why should I be paying? I mean, if it's a small business, So anyway, I was like, wait, I've already paid for the packaging to have this delivered. I now have to pay for packaging to return it. When actually, if you had a system where, as I'm going to buy this product, you tell something comes up that says, Finn, at the beginning of my actual process. So I actually still have those, like I bought 2 and I still have them. And this was like, maybe about 2-3 years ago, and it just put me off. Like, so even like that, or wanting to like go into getting like the tights with them, because obviously they have the full range as well. I was just like, no, put off, not interested. But then when I saw Sheer Chemistry on Janet's List, obviously Janet's a friend, and I really admire what she's created with Janet's List. So I was like, okay, let me support. What do I need from this platform? I'm not really into makeup like that. I'm not really into like, you know, body stuff. I'm just like, but tights, who doesn't need a good old tights?
It's true.
Especially when it's like skin tones. I was like, okay. So I remember going, buying it, and the package when it came, I remember just thinking, like, number one, the packaging of the tights itself, amazing. But then it came in this beautiful purple envelope. And I actually kept that for a long time because I was like, if I ever get to like the point where I want to like launch product, this is the kind of thing I want to send out. Like it was just a luxury feel to it. It didn't just feel like I was getting tight. It was like, ooh, what's in here? And then open it up. And it was just such a seamless process. So for me as a customer, I was like, yes, I love this. And then, you know, and then I think a year later, a couple months later, I bumped into you at the Black Girl Fest.
Yes.
And it was my birthday. And I was like,
I remember.
Right? And, you know, it was my birthday. And again, I, you know, went with the intention of buying a few products. And, you know, saw your brand. I was like, yep, I need to get a new tide because, again, because I'm obviously having had a bad experience with Nubian skin. I was very cautious. I didn't just order like 20 tights. I think I ordered like one the first time. And then I was like, no, I need more.
Yeah.
So then I came and then I bought like 3 and you gave me an extra one because it was my birthday. And I was just like, she didn't have to do that. Like, and I think this is what, like, people don't seem to understand that customer service is not just about doing what you say you're going to do. It's about that extra mile. Yeah. It's about that doing a little bit more that the customer is not really expecting. That's what draws people in. So talk us through the branding in terms of how you decided the concept of what the brand looks like, the packaging for the tights, the envelope that you delivered them in. I mean, Tahlia, everything was so on point. Like, honestly, if you have not gotten hold of Share Chemistry, please go out there and buy you some now so that you can get the joy that I received when I got my first Share Chemistry tights.
Well, I guess I've always wanted to, because this product, well, in 2011, I do appreciate that there now are several brands that exist, but at that point there was nobody. And so I really wanted to really celebrate women of color and be very intentional about creating a product that is for us. And that doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to be, because sometimes I feel like people create stuff, but it's not with heart, you know? And so I really wanted to make it with heart and to be like, I see you and I know who you are. And so I think everything I've been very, I've thought about, from the name of the products to the name of the shades, to what the packaging looks like. It's been very, like, everything has been really important to me.
Why did you decide to name, so you now have 5 products, isn't it? Or
So I've got still three,
but you've got different ranges within.
So I've got different shades within each product.
So tell us about the names of the range and why did you decide to go for those names?
So I've got 3. So there's Confidence, Radiance and Ambition. And so I thought, how can I describe these women and how do I want them to feel when they wear this product? And so Ambition, it's like for everyday workwear. So it's the matte tight. So I want you to put on ambition. I want you to feel your most ambitious self when you wear these tights. And Radiance is the gloss tights, which I'm wearing now. Yes.
See? Even I've noticed. I was actually thinking, why is she not wearing any tights?
No, of course I'm wearing tights. They're silly. But yeah, Radiance, I want you to feel your most radiant self. They're kind of for more going out. I personally wear them every day, but I just like to
Radiance and
I like to feel radiant every day. So, and then there's Confidence, which is our control tight with extra support. So it's kind of like Spanx, but with tights. And so I want you to feel that extra confidence boost when you wear them. So yeah, I think they tell a story about when to wear them and how you should feel, but also I think they tell a story about who the wearer is, you know? You are a radiant, confident and ambitious person, you know? And then the shades, because I know a lot of brands, like from makeup to tights and stuff, use words like mahogany and chocolate and all this stuff, and I really don't like it, and a lot of people are like, it's not that deep, And I know sometimes like, yeah, you have to call it something, and chocolate is reminiscent of brown. I get it. But at the same time, when you think about it, and describing a person and who they are and what they do, I just think chocolate is just... What does that say? You're a sweet edible good. And I know like it doesn't have to be... I
think it's lazy marketing.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be that deep. But I think if you are more intentional, you can say so much more. And so for me, part of who I am, and I think why I am who I am today, is because I have had a lot of different cultural experiences. And I think the places that I've been have really made up my identity. To a large part. And so I've named the shades after cosmopolitan and desirable cities, and 5 of my own personal favorites. I've been to all of them except one.
Which is that one? So what are the names of the 5 cities?
So we've got Havana Glow, Rio Romance, New York Soul, which is my shade, and where the story began, Nairobi Sunrise, and Parisian Dream.
I think what's my shade? I think it's either Rio or is it Havana Glow? But I can't remember. But I think I remember looking at it thinking, I want to be that shade. Why am I not that shade? I think what is the New York one? I was like, and I loved it.
So I just, and when sometimes choosing shades and stuff can be a political, emotional experience. Because, when you are a dark-skinned beauty, you might not want to be called Mocha or Midnight or something of that nature. But when you're Parisian Dream and you've been to Paris and you've had an amazing experience, and you can remember the Eiffel Tower and who you were with when you were there and how it made you feel and how it impacted you as a person, it's kind of... part of you and an experience and a memory that's positive. And so people are like, oh my gosh, I'm Parisian Dream.
Oh, sorry, I just had a great marketing idea. You should get people to capture a video of tell your share story. Like when they go away or even whatever, and just be like, this is me, and then just post it and then hashtag tell your share story.
I like that. Money.
Yes.
I like that a lot.
Because I can just imagine that. I can literally imagine being out in New York and just being like, hey, I'm not wearing ties today, so I'm not going to show mine. But just being showing, because I remember the time when I saw your stylist live, I was like, I'm wearing you.
I love that. I honestly love that.
Do you get that a lot?
Yeah, I do. And it never gets old. No. But so I want people to be excited when they discover whatever shade they are. And they're like, oh my gosh, New York. I love New York. I'm New York soul. And so I get that kind of reaction from people. And it's always really positive. And it's more than just a shade. It's memories, and it's part of their...
It's a story.
Yeah, it's a story and part of their identity.
And people have different, your connection to New York and my connection to New York are completely different. But it's the story that we tell, and it's the the journeys that we've taken, and the stories that the journeys that we make, and the stories that we take from those journeys.
Yes, exactly. So I think in that process, I want it to be an empowering part of the brand journey. And just something that makes you feel good on a day-to-day basis, and you can look down at your legs and be like, she actually thought about this.
Wow. Well, no, seriously, I love your products. Where do you see shared chemistry growing? And also in terms of where is the business now? So you're 2.5 years into the business. What does it look like? What does your day-to-day look like in terms of marketing and promoting the brand? Where can people buy shared chemistry from? I know you've done a few collaborations, not just with the W, but also with Janet's List and her pop-up stores. And what's the vision for shared chemistry? Where do you see you taking shared chemistry in the next 3 to 5 years?
Yeah, well, I guess it's taken a lot of time for me to kind of establish the brand. And for me, I haven't wanted to be too hasty in creating new products when I haven't really cemented the customer base. That's really been important for me. So at the moment, we're just available online and at concept sales like Janet's List when she does do them. We do pop-ups around London. But really, it's my intention this year to get more into wholesale distribution. So whether that's through retail stores or more partnering with businesses, like airlines and theatre companies and things like that.
Getting Virgin.
Yeah, exactly.
Are you still working on that?
I'm still working on that.
I trust you.
So yeah, but being more intentional, because I guess last year I got caught up in, I don't even know what, but just doing events and pop-ups and stuff, but I took my eye off the ball of like the wholesale, and I think that's where it can really go to the next level. But also in the background, I've been developing some new products because I think we're at that stage where we have got a lot of repeat customers, so really just increasing the product.
What kind of
range.
products is it, like under the wraps?
Well, at the moment, it's still within Hosiery. I think the next step is probably going to be next year. We'll be in a different product category, but at the moment, it's still within the Hosiery.
Amazing. Oh, this has been so much fun, Tahlia. Before we wrap up, just wanted to ask, what would be, going through some of like the life experiences that you've had, the creating shared chemistry and where you are now, what's the one takeaway you would want to share, you'd want to leave with the audience from your story? What would you want people to, like, not necessarily an advice, but something that you're like, this is the journey I've made, and this is my story, and this is what I want you to leave with?
Well, I think we are all capable of making a positive impact on other people's life. And I think for me, like, people are like, why tights and why does that even matter? But just from my personal experience and even speaking to you, I know that
it matters.
And it can really shape how people perceive themselves. So I think we shouldn't underestimate the power that we have from just taking action and being bold to create something new.
I love that. Well, that's the end of today's episode. Oh my God, this was so much fun. Really, really excited to have Tahlia on the couch with me today on the Talking About Chronicles podcast. Please, if you did enjoy this episode, how can people find out about Share Chemistry?
Oh, yes. So we're available to purchase all of our products online, which is www.sharechemistry.com. Also on social media, Instagram, it's sharechemistry_tights. On Facebook and Twitter, it's just Share Chemistry.
Amazing. So yes, please, if you make sure you follow Tahlia and Share Chemistry. And if you did enjoy this episode, leave a review, give some feedback, share with a friend, and more importantly, support Share Chemistry.
Yes.
Buy some ties. If you don't wear ties, you've got sisters, you've got moms, you've got aunties, cousins, you've got people that you can gift Share Chemistry to. And I'm really excited to see where you take your brand to next.
Thank you so much for having me. Aww.